Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, with the Local Leaders Podcast, and we are thrilled today to have from the great state of Texas, Amarillo, to be exact, the Big Texan Steak Ranch, and we've got one of the owners, Bobby Lee, here with us today. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. We're glad to have you.
Jeff, thank you so much, and I'm excited about being on and getting to visit with you. And appreciate you thinking of the great state of Texas with the Big Texan Steak Ranch.
Yes, sir. Right there on 66, right?
Yep. That's the birthplace of it, and it was that's back when Route 66 was still running through here.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. Route 66 really gave us a lot of our heritage, our lifeline, and birthing rights on it, because it was for that through the Texas Panhandle. You got about a 197-mile strip that goes through it. Mm-hmm. And through that strip, when you're going through the Texas Panhandle, the East-West travelers that have never been to Texas, it's like if you go to Hawaii, you want to see a girl in a grass skirt. And my dad had the vision of putting a cowboy out there because that's what people were looking for, because he was definitely not from Texas. He was a Yankee at heart. So it was a good combination, and it worked well 61 years later.
Yes, sir. Well, speaking of which, 61 years is a long history, and I want to open up the floor and just give you an opportunity to kind of introduce the business and tell us a little bit about your story and where it came from and where you are today, and feel free to talk about all the expansions that you've gone through and components of your business that you've added, because you guys are unique. This is a destination, not just a restaurant. Or an RV park, or an event center, or a brewery, right? And what else am I missing? Go ahead, Bobby. Tell us a little bit about it before I blow it.
Well, my dad was with Marriott back in the 50s, and he was going to places that were putting food on airplanes. And Amarillo at the time, back in the late 50s, was still on propeller service going through here, not jet service. So they moved him from Dallas Love Field to Amarillo to put the food on the airplanes up here while the planes were being fueled. Then jet service came in, and he got stuck in the middle of nowhere with a couple of kids in tow, and kind of liking the area, kind of intrigued by it. And he liked the Western flair because, like I said, he was from the Midwest. He was not a Texan by any means. And he liked seeing the real cowboys that were here, because at the time we had a huge stockyard. It was one of the biggest working stockyards in America. And my dad would ask around town, where do people go to eat with the cowboys? Where's the big steakhouse? And people would look at him like, oh, we're upscale. We're like little Dallas type thing. And they really shunned their heritage of the Western motif. They weren't proud of it like my dad wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. So he put in a little place on Route 66. It was a Western style steakhouse. It really truly wasn't true cowboyish or anything else. It had a Western flair to it. But with the stockyards being 2 blocks away from there, and 500 cowboys getting off work and having the horses in the back of their pickups and the vans to carry the horses, he was smart enough to have them stop in. He started selling nickel beer, and he would cash their paychecks. They used to pay him daily. And the personality of these big cowboys was just so intriguing to him, and it was also intriguing to the other tourists that were stopping in there. And as it developed over the year, he started realizing that he had a show inside his restaurant when these cowboys got off work. So he put a big table right in front of the grill in the dining room, and he let these cowboys sit there and do whatever they wanted to do and brag about who's got the biggest muscle, who could drink a beer the quickest, who could eat the most calf fries. And it was part of the persona that was started. And he was smart enough to sit back and let these guys do the show for him. And the more they bragged, the more their paycheck was, the more nickel beer he would sell them. And it got to the point that it was becoming a regular big feature on Route 66 coming through here, that the people coming through the Texas Panhandle, through that strip, this is where the Cowboys are at. And it started building from there. And he just continued to sit back and watch them and let them do that. In fact, our big Mickey Mouse of the Big Texan, which is a free 72-ounce steak challenge, was put together. And it came from these Cowboys that were at this table because they were amazed at who could eat the most, who could do the most. And my dad said, look, next Friday, I got 12 seats here, and everybody put up $5 for one of the seats, and whoever eats the most 1-pound steaks, I'm going to bring out 1-pound steak over an hour. I'm going to declare him champion, and they get to keep the money that's in the hat. So he had 12 eaters fight for those positions, and he started bringing out 1-pound steaks, and it was buzzed all over Amarillo and the highway that this contest was going on. And one cowboy ate a couple steaks real quick, and he said, well, I want one of them baked potatoes and bring me one of them shrimp cocktails. And he looked at the other guys he was showing off. And he said, bring me a salad and some bread. And he just kept eating. At the end of the contest, he had done 4.5 1-pound steaks, which is 72 ounces. He'd eaten a baked potato shrimp cocktail, rolled butter, and a tossed salad. My dad said, from this day forward, anybody that can eat this meal gets it for free. And in December of 1960, the contest started. And 61 years later, it's the same rules, same percentage of people that win, 1 out of every 6 men, 1 out of every 2 women. But that's where the Big Texan came from. That's where it got the persona it has. And that's what the magic of the place is that it's not about what we think of ourselves of Texas. It's what other people that come through, that their perception of Texas. Do we get on the tables and drink tequila and dance? Yeah, sure we do. Have at it. And that's the fun of the place. And believe me, every year it gets bigger and bigger. And it's neat because this far down the line with the restaurant, we're seeing second and third and even fourth generation grandparents come in with their grandkids talking about they were brought to the Big Texan back in the 60s with their grandparents. So it's a real neat place to watch the evolution of your customer base grow from years past. It really is. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds amazing. And, just from looking at your website, which is very well done, and talking with you, a couple times ahead of time here, it's a place I would love to visit. I have never been to Amarillo, but if I'm in Texas again, anywhere near you guys, I'm definitely coming to check it out. And I was just thinking while you were talking, I'm thinking big because it's Texas, right? How big is the restaurant itself? I mean, it looks huge from what I can see.
We can seat about 600 people in there at a time.
Goodness gracious.
We'll feed about anywhere between 1,500 to 1,800 a shift. So we do about 3,000 people a day average over there. It just depends on how far we're willing to stretch the boundary for people to sit.
Yeah.
I've seen them out in the parking lot eating. We've seen a lot in the time. It's a magical place because people that get there, they get there and they've heard about it. They've seen it on TV. We've been so fortunate in those areas, and they get there and they're genuinely excited, and they bought off on the fact that they're there. It's like they get to Disney World or you get to Universal Studios, and you're saying, here's my credit card, feed me, entertain me, take care of my kids. And that's the beauty of it. So it goes back into a responsibility as far as a restaurateur, that to get past the hype that people walk in and it's not good. The service isn't good, that becomes a tourist trap. And that's the one thing that people walk into saying, probably a tourist trap. But when they eat there and they see the service and the personality of the place, and they say those 3 magical words, we'll be back. That's what makes it all worth it. And that's why the marketing of it is divided into internal marketing and external marketing. Internal marketing is your food and your service. External marketing is getting the horse to water. And it's a real good relationship that me and my brother, who is hopefully going to be here before the interview is over with, is working on a refrigeration on the internal marketing part. But it's a good combination because it gives me a chance to market the thing, as well as when I get busy, we all put on aprons and it's time to go to work. But it's like he keeps us off the obituary, and my job is to keep us on the front page. So that's how the relationship's been set up, and for years and years, and it's worked out really well because we do put on a big show there at the Big Texan, and people eat while they're watching the show, and that's what's fun about it.
Well, that you guys have a great story, and as before when I was preparing to come on today, one of the things I was going to ask you about, because many of our listeners are also in family-run businesses, and this is a family-run business with Bobby and Danny, his brother, who own and operate this multitude of businesses that are here, which we'll talk about in a minute. But how difficult is it to operate and run the business, with family, and what kind of unique challenges have you guys run into, and kind of how have you gotten past it? I think that'll help a lot of our family-owned businesses out there, because you know how that is with family, right?
It is, and it's one of those things that when has it always been pleasant? No. In fact, there was 8 siblings originally that was part of my family, our family, or nuclear family at the house. And we all grew up in the restaurant business. We got picked up from school when you were taken from school to the Big Texan. If you had homework,
Right.
you went to the accountant's office. If not, you were given a task, whether it be peeling shrimp or bread and calf fries, or if you were in trouble, you could always tell which of the lead kids was in trouble. We get stuck at the pot sink with the homeless person. So it was always easy to spot that. But that was pretty much our daily routine of working like that. And we all grew up in the restaurant business. The shareholder agreement when my dad passed in 1990 was not an ideal situation for the family. And it kind of bound us at the wrists with the other siblings. In the other hand, you got to hold a knife. And over 17 years, it was sad, because the relationships that we developed with our brothers and sisters throughout the years growing up, it was pretty much severed during that time. And what happened was, it got to the point that my brother Danny and I bought everybody out for what they requested on it, and we took over the operations back in early 2000 and were able to do what we needed to do with it. We both knew it was great material, but it was sad that the family itself wasn't able to pull through the deal. And communication and relationship with them now is very strained still. But it's part of the business. You have to have a business side, and you have to have a family side. And no matter what you say or who you are or how well you think you know your own siblings, if you're going in the restaurant business, you better be prepared to do what's right for the business. And it's sad to say, but if you're going to do it, learn that before you open the doors of the restaurant, because once you get open, it gets real ugly.
Yeah, well, that's great advice, and having a solid operating agreement, and I would imagine, like you talked about with Danny, you guys have kind of your own role that's set aside that you do within the business, and not stepping on each other is probably what makes it work. And I think that's great advice for any family-run business, whether it's a husband-wife team, which we have a number of restaurateurs that we've talked to, as well as that I work with regularly, that struggle with the similar issues. So congratulations on what you guys have done. Sorry to hear that some of the other family issues were there, and that they're no longer part of the business, but the business is rocking and rolling. And I can't help but be amazed every time I look at the website, and I see all the different businesses within the business. So just to kind of say it one more time, not only is this a restaurant, but this is a brewery. You've got RV facility that's part of the operation. You've got a motel. You've got an event center, and I can't remember if am I missing anything?
Well, there's a lot of little spin-off businesses, but the one nice thing about it is, growing up in the business and knowing the business the way we do, we've been able to, what works with this? Why would you want to be in the RV business? Well, it's tourist, and the fact that we can lease them a motel or lease them a space for the night for their RV, and then we get the opportunity to pick them up in one of our Longhorn limousines, bring them down to the restaurant, feed them, let them drink whiskey, let them buy stuff in the gift shop. There's a nice, everything flows together. Same thing with the hotel, same thing with the horse hotel. It's all backed up on product knowledge, what we can do, what we can't do, what we want to get into, what we don't want to be in. And that's the nice thing about it. Over the years, it's one of those things that you're kind of like, you get on a ladder and you start looking up and you're grabbing the next ring, and all of a sudden you keep climbing and climbing. And then all of a sudden 10, 20 years later, you stop and you look down, you go, oh my God, how do we get up here? It's one of those things that in the growth of everything and the hustle bustle of it, you don't realize how you're growing. And one of the problems that we're very conscious of is the fact that we are sometimes too much hands-on in operations, and we see it from that level. And it's okay to jump over to an RV park or to a concert venue, but when it's all said and done, it's a lot of extra work. And what we do, good or bad, you trade your time for money, and that's the trade-off. And it gets to the point, especially when you start hitting your 50s and 60s, that how much more do you want to take on? How much more time do you want to trade for money? And that's a question that everybody that is lucky enough to be in that position, or blessed enough to be in that position, has to consider.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it kind of leads me to thinking about, most of the time when we're talking to restaurant owners specifically, which, a lot of our audience is made up of, when they think of growth, it's number of units. It's okay, let's add locations or let's franchise, right? But you guys took a whole different approach and, created this destination, as opposed to expanding your footprint, so to speak, into other locations. How did you manage to gain the operational expertise for these other businesses? I mean, a hotel is, and an RV park, all of those types of things are linked, but they're not necessarily a restaurant. So did you go out and find other people, or did you learn it yourselves? How did that work?
A little bit of both, but one thing that you look for a telescope type feel on any of the businesses that you do, any ancillary business that we do. Will it fit into what we're doing? Will it work? How much more business can we get? If you want to use the word double dip, can we double dip this with the Big Texan to do this? Mm-hmm. Where does it lead? The gift shop. How big can we make the gift shop? How is it staffed? What's the best person we can get that we can have them buy the merchandise, have the style that we want, and make it all work? So there's a lot of little things that you learn as you're going. And believe me, there's been some times that we've just crashed and burned. It's not one of those things that everything we've done is good. And so many times we'll think we have a great idea because we see it somewhere, and then we bring it back and it falls flat on its face. Or a menu item, you think, oh, this is so good. These people are eating pasta all the time. We need to put pasta on our menu, but it goes back to the basics: steak, potato, beer, whiskey, the Texas experience. So no matter what we think we've learned, it all goes back to, will it sell at the Big Texan? And it's not about, as owners of a restaurant, it's not about what we like. If we're really cowboys, if we like the Western way, it's about what the customers want and what they want to buy. And so many times learning that over the years, it comes from sometimes just sitting on the front porch, listening to what people are saying, watching what they're looking at, what they're seeing, and what their perception is. And then, of course, the best thing of all is to go back to the dish room and look at the dish table and see what food's coming back, what's eaten, what's not eaten. Are you giving too big of proportions? Are you giving not enough food? I mean, are people griping about 10% of people? My dad always said, if 10% of the people aren't complaining about your prices are too low. So there's lots of little things that you can watch and monitor in your restaurant, what's working and what's not. And that's why you'll see me and my brother both at the dish table watching, what's coming back. Is that too big of a steak? Surprisingly, that I guess with America and everybody eating so much now and getting heavy like they're talking about, it seems like our steaks aren't getting smaller, they're getting bigger and bigger, 40 ounce, 50 ounce, 60 ounce. So the appetite for America is growing. Of course, when you come into the Big Texan, you are, in the middle of nowhere, but you're at the beef capital of the world. So you want the biggest steak and that you can get your hands on, the coldest beer, and you want to be a Texan while you're there. And that's what's fun about the Big Texan. It allows that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It again just makes me me want to pack up and get my wife and I to Texas so we can sample that. And it's one of those meals, you know, when you think about going to the Big Texan, that you don't eat all day before you go. And I'm sure that's the strategy that many people employ is, hey, let's get as hungry as we can because we're going to eat big when we get over there today. So I was about to ask you about, you know, maybe the type of metrics or the things that you and Danny really look at in terms of being able to run the day-to-day piece of your business. But I think you might have answered me. You know, when you talk metrics, you're typically talking numbers and ratios and all this kind of stuff and what's important to you. But it sounds like you're getting that visual cue by watching, you know, watching what's going on, watching what food's coming back. Are there any, you know, would you advise business owners to do more of that, or would you think number crunching is more important?
Both. Whenever it comes to restaurants, you know, we talk to restaurant schools, we'll talk to different culinary programs, University of Texas, University of Houston, Oklahoma State University. And it's really hard to understand why kids would want to go into the restaurant business. For my brother and myself, I mean, I know that television glamorizes the business. They have these celebrity chefs that they have, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, that they can perform all this stuff for turn a restaurant around in whatever. But there is so much more that goes into a restaurant than what you see on TV. It's you work as much from shoulders up as you do shoulders down. It's about controlling the controllables. You know, the fixed costs are fixed costs. But your meat price, how can we get the food cheaper? And it's nice at Big Texan because everything we do is based on projections. We know exactly how many pans of potatoes to have in at any hour of the day. We know how many busboys to put on, when our managers get vacation, when we can do maintenance. And it's all about based on past business history that you can base that on. My brother has a tremendous ability to hedge meat. And we're very fortunate we can buy 200 to 300 boxes of boxed beef at a time. And we have a freezer facility that we can freeze it into, where we know exactly when top sirloin is going to be at the lowest price during the year, and we can cut our deals on that. So we're able to do that. And in some cases, especially during the COVID time, we were really lucky that Danny was able to buy, you know, the top sirloin, the ribeye, the fillets, the T-bones, the inside rounds when he did, because those prices shot up. I mean, to a level that people were coming to us wanting to buy our meat. I mean, in 1 week, if we wouldn't have bought when we did, it was $450,000. And when you're doing 8-9 cents on the dollar, 10 cents, especially with a heavy steakhouse like that, I mean, every penny counts. It really does. And that's why, you know, being able to hedge on meat buying, taking a look, knowing when you schedule your employees, stagger in time, those little things, controlling the controllables, is really what it's all about in the restaurant business. And if you don't watch that stuff, it'll kill you. Labor is the most unpleasant part about the restaurant business. It's you're satisfied with hiring people, but you know, when you do the volume we do, that the burnout, it's real apparent. And it seems like anymore, 20 years ago, it really didn't happen. But now, you know, your good servers, I mean, they're fried within 2 or 3 years. It used to be you hang on for 10 years, no matter how much money they're making. If they're walking out here with $300 or $400 a night, the burnout, you have to consider that within the psychology about what gets into their head, why they become bitter. And during this pandemic, they were so difficult to know when to schedule, when not to schedule. And it was a big problem, especially when you're saying we're at 25% that the state allows, 50%. That was hard, keeping the doors open and learning how to do carry out. Nowadays, with the labor not coming in anymore and deciding they don't want to come to work tonight, that's the hardest part we've ever been in the restaurant business in 61 years of business, is having to deal with people unappreciative of their jobs, of even telling you they're not going to make a shift that night. And washing dishes and bussing tables, it's part of it. And as an owner, you roll up your sleeve and put your big boy pants on. You go to work because that's your responsibility. And those people are there to spend money with you. you have to take care of them like there's nothing bad going on to keep that experience of the Big Texan alive.
That's a great point. And every restaurant owner that I've talked to, well, really since COVID, I mean, you've had just one thing after another that's hit. First off, it was COVID, and the restrictions. Then everyone had to try to find a way to move to off-premises dining and get the curbside, the takeout, the delivery. That maybe was just a very, very small piece of the business before, and now suddenly it's 90% of the business. Right during the first of COVID. I'm curious, how has your off-premises business changed, and do you foresee it remaining that way, or is the experience of the Big Texan so strong that people are coming back in and filling up the seats in the restaurant now?
We are so glad that they are coming back into the restaurant and we don't have to rely on that, because the experience of the Big Texan when they walk in that front door and say, wow, this is the place. We weren't getting that with curbside and carryout. I
Right.
totally despise that. And the experience of eating a steak in your car versus a steak in the main dining room of the Big Texan and the homemade beer we have there, going looking at the big rattlesnake in the gift shop. They were missing all that. And like I said, for those 6 weeks, we weren't able to offer that. But the second we opened back up last May, it started and it has not stopped on it. And with the gas prices being good and airlines doing what they did and continuing to do what they do, more people are out on the roads than we've ever seen before. I mean, we're at 40, 50%. And I mean, that's over 2019. That's not over 2020. So it's our business and the people traveling through geographically. Amarillo is in such a good position. We have more hotel rooms per capita than anywhere else in the state of Texas. And our occupancy in those rooms is the highest in the state of Texas. So the people are driving through and they're on their way to the big wide open areas, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming. And that's why we've seen such a huge increase in road business. And it's wonderful that people are out right now and they thank us. They thank us for being open and being normal again. And thank God you guys are still here. So it's a compliment. I just wish that we would have more people to be able to take care of them. I mean, whenever you quote a 2.5 hour wait and people have been in the car all day with their kids, I mean, your heart goes out to them, but hopefully, they get through it and things go back to normalcy.
I so bad want to ask you, how do we solve that staffing issue? And I'll throw it out there, but I've yet to hear anyone with a great solution. What are you guys are you doing? I mean, what are you doing to try to keep your staffing at levels that you want them at?
Well, with the Big Texan having 5 major dining areas, we're able to go off with how many people we have that's going to be there that night. And in the kitchen, who's going to be there and what positions we want. We've thought about dropping down some items on our menu. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We've also talked about doing a different type of service if we drop to this level, when and if that happens, which people would walk in, place their order, and then we take the steak at the plate. There's lots of considerations, but so far we've been just beyond busy, and we've been pretty lucky with keeping a staff compared to a lot of the restaurants. I mean, we've done extremely well during this time.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you guys for being able to do that. And, it is difficult. Turnover in the industry always, haven't been an issue in many, many places, maybe not at the Big Texan, but, across the country. But today it's definitely a challenge, and owners are looking for solutions and ideas. And I was talking to one a couple of days ago, and he said, "Yeah, I just spent $1,200 last week on staffing ads. On it wasn't LinkedIn, but on one of the staffing sites." And I said, "Well, what was your ROI? What did you get out of it?" "Not much." He said, "We got a lot of resumes, but nobody actually really wanted a job. They were just sending resumes, as a way to collect unemployment." So it's a shame, and that gets us into a whole nother political landscape that we won't try to solve here today. But it is a shame. Hopefully things will get better real soon, and people get back to work, and we'll be able to go where we need to go. We've been on about 35 minutes. Again, I want to be respectful for your time, but I thought I'd ask you just a couple more questions and see if we can squeeze a few more nuggets. I've been taking notes while you were talking, and I'm gonna go back and listen and get some more. But from a challenges standpoint that you guys have had to deal with outside of COVID and outside of staffing, and maybe I wanted to try to go back to that growth as you moved into new businesses to, expand your business overall and to better serve your clientele. What would you recommend to entrepreneurs who have, a one or two location restaurant, for example, or one or two location, whatever, and they want to expand it? What would you tell them, or kind of some of the things to consider, or some of the most important things that they should be thinking about?
Go home, and if you got kids at home, go look at them and understand that your time that you're talking about expanding restaurants with, that's time that's going to cut into time with them, and they need to make sure of that. Walk by the bar and make sure that they're on the right side of the bar and know what side they need to be on. It's very challenging in that. The time that you're going to trade in for, you hope, money, it's better be careful, and you better look at the labor force, what you got. And I mean, just because you hit it good on one location doesn't mean it's going to work on another. Things that go into factoring, where is your biggest customer base coming from? Is it the highway? Is it local? Is it a factory next door? Understand your market is so important. We do about 78 billboards a year, and it says free 72 on steak, Big Texan Steak Ranch, 2 hours ahead. And we know how to market to our customer. We know where they're coming from, the majority of them. The biggest difference we had right now is the fact that we used to have about 28% international that would come in for Big Texan to go to, the Route 66. Love the Route 66 Mother Road. But we know where to market to. We know what they're looking for. And like I said, we know what time they're going to be there. If you're going to be looking at multiple locations, that stuff, you need to be able to recite it and understand everything that's going on in those areas. And then the price of looking at another building. Does it have a grease trap? Does it have an exhaust hood? Is that up to date on code on that type thing? Your lease, your parking. I mean, the last thing you want to do is to get in a place and you don't have enough parking to get your permits to open, or plumbing or necessities. Is it something that's hard to get to off the highway? Is it easy to get to? What are the local advertising rates that you're going to be facing? What are the meat prices at that time? Can you buy in a commissary type fashion where you can have a place to store it at, to where when you need it, you can issue it out? There's so many little things like that. But more importantly than anything else, I would look at the labor market first and foremost to see what you have as far as people that want to work, and are they working? And especially in this day and age with this uncertainty of the labor market, I would be terrified to put another place in and have to rely on staffing that thing, because there's nothing in your life that's harder than opening a restaurant. No matter what you say, it's one of the things that you're given in your life only 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times that you can do that. Some people really enjoy it, but when you open a restaurant, the stress of what you put yourself through on something like that, you don't get in your lifetime that many to do. And like I said, by doing that and being away from your family, being away from home, sleeping in a different bed, be careful with that. Because like I said, you will often trip over your own feet on that.
Yeah, that is sage advice, right? For those who are thinking about it. And you're right. And what surprises me is every day I talk to people, and I just was talking to a gentleman earlier today. He said he's opening a new location next week. He's got, I think, 4, and he's going to 5. And just flippantly, he said that, and it was like he's, either he's got confidence, which I'm sure he does, and he's done all that prerequisite work. But it just scares me, and I think you just reiterated that whole fact that it's it's tough. It would be tough to staff a new business in any part of the country at the moment. It seems like,
yeah.
But they are opening new restaurants. So for those of you who are thinking of doing that and moving forward, Bobby's given you a whole list. You go back and listen to that again of things to think about between leases and parking and commissary and all those other things that you mentioned. So I think that's a great piece of advice. But the number one takeaway I've gotten so far is, and I noted it earlier, you're trading time for money. I haven't ever thought about it that way, frankly, and I like that. With your permission, I might use it again.
Like I said, it just depends on what their view on retirement is. I mean, my brothers and I, if you sell your business, if you're lucky enough to do that before you get too old, you'll have some years. If not, then retirement will be being carried out under a white sheet. So it's one of those type decisions you got to make.
Well, Bobby, what are you guys thinking about? And I know you've got to be very restricted now, and because of all the challenges out there. But what's next for the Big Texan?
What's next for the Big Texan? Great question. The one thing that we've gotten into, and all us old people my age, having to deal with social media and dealing with that, we've been real fortunate on our website, bigtexan.com, that we always had a camera on the stage of the steak eaters that was put up back in the 90s. And the one thing we've learned with YouTube and the ability to expand on that is that our 28% is of international markets love Route 66. They love the Big Texan to know about it. We've been very lucky in being able to be on lots of international shows. We call it the live stream. And if you go to bigtexan.com, you go 72 Ounce Steak live stream. Oh. And we've expanded that through the next generation of the Big Texan. My boys have been able to work with that and develop a way that the whole world can watch people eat the 72 Ounce Steak now. We even have people that will call us if they can't get a good picture on that thing or something's off a little bit. They'll call and say, we're wagering. This is a big wager thing at our bar that we have you all up on the screen, and we always bet on if they're going to do it or not. It's a big deal at our bar. People come in just for that, and they watch TV all day long at the internet, and they bet on who's going to do it or not.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'd have never thought of that, but that sounds awesome. I'd love to see that at our local bar.
We didn't either. I mean, we had no idea about that, but I mean, people sit there for hours, which is much to our surprise. People sit there for hours and watch people eat 70 Chinese, watch the dining room on this live shot. So we're developing every day more and more into the YouTube that people love to watch this contest internationally and nationally on that. So that seems to be kind of a big thing going right now. I think we're going to be expanding the RV quite a bit because there's been so many people during the COVID that have bought RVs and the RV parks, and we're seeing a huge increase in that business. So we're excited about that, and then the entertainment part of it. Danny and I call it entertainment. The fact that we can do concerts and we can tie in a package for people. They come, they eat at the Big Texan, they get to shop there. And then they get to go see a concert from some Texas artist or some artist going through here. There's lots of people, lots of bands that go from the casinos in New Mexico to Oklahoma, or they're going to Branson or Las Vegas and they're going through Amarillo. So we've been able to contact great talent and complete the package for people to stay an extra night in Amarillo and see a concert under the stars.
That's amazing. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward.
Well, look, I've got one other question, and of course you're open to share anything else that you may think about. But I wanted to talk just a second about mentors and/or educational resources. Over the years, sound like you guys have been heavily involved on the education side with the universities and other schools. Did you have any particular mentors or education or resources that you guys sought out over the years that you would recommend other people looking to succeed, might follow suit?
The biggest help we got was something that, like I mentioned earlier, when we were in school, we got picked up and we had no choice but to go to the Big Texan. So we developed, I don't want to be in the restaurant business, and anything we could get into, and mine was sports, because if I got into sports and played football, I didn't have to go to the Big Texan to work after school. So it was a good thing for me. And I went away as far as I could and I got going into the health clubs, working out during the off season, and started understanding that I had a talent and realized what my talent was, which was marketing, public relations, promotions. And that was my part of my dad that I got. And it took me getting real far away from the Big Texan and a couple really good sales managers that made me realize what talent I had. And having a food knowledge plus that, and then having a brother that's incredibly talented in food and beverage. When we got back after my father passed away, that we were able to do that. But getting away and realizing your talent and developing that talent and how you can incorporate that into food service, the hospitality industry, has been the best mentor or any education I got, and realizing that I can go out there and I can create events, whether it be a steak eating contest, whether it be the internet with my boys, to learn new ways to promote the Big Texan, because people know about it. And every time that bell rings, when they hear Big Texan, that's what you want to do. And we've been real lucky with that. And having a real strong base with food and service through my brother, who studied with he worked with my uncle's restaurant in Kansas City, and he got his best education too when he moved away from the Big Texan, and was able to get away and realize, what a great setting we had for that. And then putting our talents together made a big difference back in the 90s.
Well, like I said early on, you guys kind of have each got your own role within the business. And I think that's a critical piece. Like I said, you're not stepping on each other, and hopefully your success would say that you figured out a way to make that work, between you guys and make yourselves successful. So congratulations.
Now, there's still times, like I said, I'm going to call robust debate that, we'll go out by the dumpster and we'll have a couple of dukes here and there, but it's part of it, because he's pushing for what he thinks is the best for the Big Texan, and I'm pushing for what I think is best for the Big Texan, and wherever that lands, it's a better product.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, your experience is amazing. I wish we could have had the opportunity to hear from Danny, but you tell him we missed him, and maybe we'll catch him on a follow-up. Any parting words or last comments that you'd like to make about Big Texan or life in general?
Jim, no, listen, I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing, and I like the angle you're taking with it. I mean, lots of people, no matter who they are, you can learn, and learning never stops when you're in business. Anytime you think you know it all, then you need to be out of business, and you will be out of business. So always keeping your ears and eyes open and seeing new things that excite you, and being able to come back. And the best thing about being an independent restaurant person is to be able to get an idea and go in there and watch it through fruition. And regardless if it works or it doesn't work, the satisfaction of knowing that you got to have an idea and put it into action, that's a great feeling. That makes it all worthwhile.
Yes, sir, it does. And we are very thankful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to share your experience and the school of hard knocks that you've been through to get there. I know it was hard earned, but well-deserved success for you guys at the Big Texan, and we're just thankful that you were able to come on and share with us. I hope that we'll have another opportunity to chat at some later point, maybe with some follow-ups. But we do appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, and to our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in today to hear from Bobby Lee and to gain some insight from his knowledge and experience that he was able to share. We hope you'll tune back in. We are releasing new episodes every Monday and every Wednesday. So we hope you'll tune in again soon and get a little more education, learn a little bit more how to be successful and to grow your success in life as well as in business. So I'm Jeff Johnson, your host of the Local Leaders Podcast. And again, thank you, Bobby, and we appreciate it and wish you all the best.